What is up, everyone? How's it going? How's it going? Let me get out of studio mode here. Put that up. Here we are. Shouldn't say everyone. Only like two people in here right now, but how's it going? Good morning, or good evening if that's where you're at. Excuse me. I've been up for about an hour or so. It's been all right. Is that too loud? Let me look real quick. It doesn't seem too bad. Yeah, my voice is a lot louder than that, so. And I'm trying to keep it down. Kids are still sleeping and stuff. You know how that works. So anyways, let's get on into it. The first thing I want to talk about is I always like to kick off every stream in case we get people that just want to pop in for 5 minutes or so with some libertarian philosophy. So I've been just kind of what's been in my heart is the non-aggression principle, which is the very foundation of the libertarian philosophy, because basically you can't be libertarian, which is a person who believes that everybody has a right to individual freedom as much as human and naturally possible. Think about it in the animal world. In the animal world, animals, basically wild animals, are completely free. They can do whatever they want, right? And they live in natural harmony with each other, except for us. So we're kind of different because we have that whole free will thing and intelligence and stuff and critical thinking and all this stuff that animals don't have. But anyway, so going to that natural freedom that we have, that we're born with, we're born naturally free. So it isn't until as we grow older and our capabilities start to develop that there has to be put limitations placed on those capabilities. So in the libertarian philosophy and the non-aggression principle is basically saying that you should remain as free as possible as long as your liberty doesn't aggress against somebody else's liberty through force, fraud, or theft. So I'm going to go through each one of those individually. So what they mean by force is actual physical force. You can't be violent to another person physically. And fraud would be somebody scamming you or lying to you to basically aggressing against you through fraud, through lies and deceit. And then there's theft, which theft is stealing from you. So, or taking what is rightfully yours without asking, without your permission. Non-voluntary taking of what is yours. Kind of like what happens when you get a paycheck and you notice that there's all of these deductions from your paycheck that you don't remember saying okay to. That's why libertarians are always saying taxation is theft, is because you never voluntarily said yes to being taxed for those things. So I know some people say, well, you voted and you belong to this society that voted for those things, but not necessarily. Not necessarily. Government does a lot of actions that don't get individually voted on by the people, which that's a whole different point right there. So the non-aggression principle is basically saying that you should be protected from aggression through force, fraud, or theft from anything. And it really, if you think about it, it applies. It's also called, and I said this in yesterday's stream, so if you're watching this, you're going to get a little rerun here. So some people actually call it the good neighbor policy. And the good neighbor policy is it's the same thing as the non-aggression principle, and it's the way that we interact with our neighbors, our friends, and our family. Is we wouldn't force, fraud, or steal from our friends, neighbors, and family, but we're okay with government forcing, frauding, and stealing from our neighbors. You know what I mean? Hey, Luck of the Irish Pod. Good to see you too, man. How's it going? Taxes do help run a country. You need those in some forms. So, yeah, you're getting into like a real... So, This is where libertarians vary on. Some basically say that you can do without taxes completely. That you could fund the entire country off of fees. So if you use a service, then you get charged for the service. Kind of like the way it works in the free market. So if you use the roads, then you get charged for the roads. But if you ride a bicycle, then maybe you get charged for the bike lanes. So you get charged for what you use. So that's one view. That's like the extreme view from libertarian is no, you can get rid of taxes completely and you only get charged for what you use. I have a hard time with that because, okay, we all use the military, so somehow we all are going to have to pay for the military. So how do we pay for that? So my thing was, if we could reduce the size of government down to its bare necessities, and to me, the bare necessities that would be taxable would be at the federal level. I think that's the only thing that would really need to be taxed at the federal level, would be stuff at the federal level. And that would be stuff as stuff like foreign relations. Really, this is all that the federal government would need to handle. Would be foreign relations, national defense, and probably some form of borders. A lot different than the borders we have now. Much more open borders than we have now, but some sort of screening process for the borders. But really, that'd be about it. And then like actual paying legislatures. But I think the payment of the legislatures, this is what I've always said, should be tied to the median income of their constituency. So like the president would get paid for the median income of the entire country. Whatever that income is, the average citizen's income for the entire country, that's what the president would get paid. Senators and congressmen would get paid for the average income of their constituency. There's no reason why a representative should get paid so much more than the constituency that they represent. I mean, I think that disconnects them from their constituency. They don't know the struggles of the people that they represent if they're making $100,000 more than the average citizen in that constituency. So that's one thing. These are, when you get into the details, I'm going to get into a lot of what Libertarian Dave thinks about things, kind of what my stance in them, and it's not necessarily the entire Libertarian Party or every libertarian. Libertarians have a lot of different, and we have great conversations about different views on libertarianism. So, but anyways, back to the taxation thing. I think that if we could reduce the size of government down to that level, then we could institute a flat tax that would, and I don't understand why we don't already have a flat tax. I think we don't have a flat tax because it would be so obvious how insane the amount of money our federal government is raking in off the citizens. It would be totally obvious. So I think that's why we don't have a flat tax. And, so I think there should be a cap on it, though. You know what I mean? Like, you literally don't pay taxes if you're living in poverty. Like, you should not be paying anything. And then, so if you're above the poverty level, then your tax would be based off of percentages. Neighbor State Farm is there. Oh, good morning, Tel. How you doing? Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. It is. I like the good neighbor policy. So I'm going to use an example for the good neighbor policy too. Hey, Budsville, what's going on? Nope, COVID free here, and I don't really care. I'm going to get into that first, though, right after I get done with my libertarian spill here. I know, right? That free money, man. That's the thing I like people to understand is that's the other thing I like to preach a lot. You'll hear me say it a lot. Government does not create wealth. The thing about the reason why government's entire power is through the use of force. It's an institution whose entire power comes through the use of force. And they don't create any wealth. So the only way that they can get money is to forcibly take it from somebody else. That's the only way. And it's that use of force, especially if you believe in karma at all. It's the use of force by taking away that reduces the possibility of anything good coming from that action. So that's why it sends, it just like nails on a chalkboard whenever I see government helping. When they say they're going to help, I'm like, oh boy. So the one good example of the good neighbor policy is, so if your neighbor chose not to wear, do you care if your neighbor wears a seatbelt? I mean, not only that. I mean, do you care enough about whether your neighbor's wearing a seatbelt or not to go over there and take $50 from them? Not. I'm saying take. Like, grab their wallet and take $50 out of their wallet for not wearing a seatbelt. I would say 99% of people would probably say no. But that's a law on the books. The easiest examples of the good neighbor policy are the ones that violate the most liberty. And there's a reason for that. Because when you look at it in view of, if I am enforcing it upon my neighbor, my friends, or my family, then it feels different. But what I want to emphasize is it's the same. And then you might come back with, well, okay, but this is a society. It's not just you and your family, you and your brother, or you and your neighbor. No, but it is. Even as a society in general, it is. These things don't affect the entire society. So that's one thing. People like Trump don't pay taxes. They do. They do pay taxes, but they always get a kickback in the end. They get something. There's some kind of something that the government ends up giving them most of that money back through some kind of subsidy, or usually it's subsidies. Like, there's probably some hotel subsidy, so Trump pays $40 million in taxes, and then there's a $60 million subsidy to the hotel industry that he gets on the back end. So, but that's what corporate cronyism is. So, and the only way we're going to get rid of that is to elect libertarians into office. The libertarians they can't vote for it. I mean, it literally violates that's why we're called the party of principle. Libertarian Party is called the party of principle because our platform is based on principles. So when those principles are smaller government, reduced taxes, non-aggression principle, free markets, and stuff like that. So the corporate bailouts would go away. Of course, the individual bailouts would go away. Social safety nets go away. But you would keep more of your own money. And like I always say, with more freedom, more liberty comes more responsibility. So it becomes you get more of your own money, but it's also your responsibility to do what's right. So if you believe that the poor should be taken care of, if you believe that, we need to support the homeless, if you believe that we need to support the poor, if you believe that we need to support whatever, Basket Weaving International, then it's up to you to use that money that we're returning to you, your own money that we're allowing you to keep, in order to support those areas that you find important. And we think that's a voluntary process. We don't think it should be, we think theft is illegal. The only reason that it's legal is because the only reason that government theft is legal is because the government is the one who chooses what's illegal or not. It hurts thinking everybody paying this much just adds up to billions easily, just taking others' money. That's true, man. It's true. I just don't know what the fallout. I mean, eventually this bubble's got to pop, right? It's at, I don't know. It was at 23 trillion, I think, before all of this started. They've added probably at least 3 trillion to it. And that's a 3 with 12 zeros behind it. Did that go the right way? Or is it this way? But anyways, 12 zeros. That's a lot of zeros, man. 12 trillion or $3 trillion they've added to it. So we're up around 26 trillion in debt now. I mean, it's a requirement that we balance our budgets at our house or we have to file for bankruptcy. But it's not a requirement for the government, the ones who forces us to file for bankruptcy. They can just be as irresponsible as they want, and that's exactly what they are. They're incompetent, irresponsible, and inept. And eventually we got to get tired of it and we have to change it. That's why, we don't. So we think that we doubt people. We doubt people all the time. Their ability to do things, right? To be smart, and we think everybody's idiots or whatever, right? But yet we have these same people that we're saying should make choices for us. And that's the libertarian platform, is no, you should be allowed to make choices for yourself. Government should not be making choices for you. If there's something that comes down to choice, as long as it doesn't interfere with the liberties or the abilities of somebody else to make a choice, then you should be able to make that choice on your own. That is a good one. I'm going to write that one down, Tal. I don't know. State Farm might sue me for it or something. I might get copyrighted for the like a good neighbor thing. Tell says you should do a libertarian minute on like a good neighbor. Libertarian is here. I gotta write stuff down. I'm getting old. My memory's not as good as it used to be. What's up, Drama? How you doing? I hope so. I hope you enjoy it, man. So, I was promising in the other two videos I was going to explain what was going on Tuesday. So, I do. This is my little off-topic minute here. So, but it just it came in my heart to speak on this, so I'm going to speak on it. I don't know who it may affect or not, but I did some work as a health coach for a while, and I learned a ton, and I got healthy, so I lost a lot of weight and basically gained a lot of energy. I was on about 5 different meds when I retired from the Army. Now I got one, just the thyroid, but I'm working on getting rid of that one too. But so what I was doing last week is every quarter or so I try to do it every quarter. I think it'd been about 5 months since I'd done one, but I do a 5-day fast. And the first 2 days of the fast are a dry fast. So I literally don't intake anything. No food, no water, nothing for 48 hours. And the Tuesday stream, I was telling my wife, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get through this stream, man. Because, of course, at that point it was at 4 o'clock. So I started at 6 p.m. So the stream started at 4, which was literally 46 hours of no water, no food, no nothing. And so my mouth was so dry and I was dying. I mean, I wasn't dying. I couldn't talk because my mouth was so dry from not drinking anything. So after that, then that's my 2 days, and then I do 3 days of a water fast, which is no food, just drinking water. So it's just water for 3 more days. So it's 5 days total fasting. And what that does is it triggers autophagy. And autophagy is broken down. The word means self-eating. And a Japanese doctor, and he got the Nobel Prize for medicine in 2016 for his study in autophagy. And what they discovered was when your body goes into this starvation mode of autophagy, a lot of people used to believe that it would you would consume all your muscle. But that's not true, at least not for the early stages of this thing. Your body actually consumes your bad cells. So there's this massive healing process that goes on when you go in autophagy. I mean, there's a 100% success rate. If you fast long enough, you will eliminate high blood pressure, which, as you know, is one of the number one killers, the silent killer, at least in the United States. So if you're thinking about fasting, then I would think you should seriously talk to your doctor, especially if you have any underlying health conditions. You should definitely talk to your doctor. A naturopathic doctor can help you out, and there's lots of resources. There's retreats and all kinds of stuff that you can look at and look into these extended fasts. My personal advice to you is to study ketosis. Now we are one of the few, if the only, I don't know if we're the only or not, might just be the few, species on the planet that is dual burning. So we can burn glucose for fuel, or we can burn ketones for fuel. And we're designed to go back and forth. The problem is that 90% of us around the world only burn glucose. We don't ever get into ketosis and burn ketosis, or burn ketones. So in ketones is like a super fuel. It actually is fat for fuel. So you'll actually burn through your fat stores while you're in ketosis. And it's great. So I measure. I measure. I like to keep track. So I use a thing called Precision Extra. It's a blood glucose meter that actually tests for ketones as well. And there's like Keto Mojo, I think, is another one. So ketosis is big now. I mean, keto is big, the diet. But you're not technically in keto unless you're testing. You need to test. So you can be eating the diet, and you might be eating too much protein, which can cause a thing called, let's see if I remember the name of it, gluconeogenesis, which can actually produce glucose instead of ketones. So I suggest, though, that you should, for one, you need to consult if you got underlying health conditions. If you're a healthy individual, it's something there's so much spiritual benefit to it too. It's huge. I mean, you just get this, when you empty yourself, I think it just opens you up to the universe, to God, and to receive a lot of spiritual enlightenment and stuff. So that's one of the great benefits. And your senses get all enlightened and stuff, and it's pretty good. The reason I do dry fast is because it kind of kicks you into it faster. So by day 3, you're full blown into ketosis and doing it. So another thing I think you should do is, if you've never fasted before, first do intermittent fasting. So go 18 hours. So like if you don't, try to eat dinner as early as possible, and then don't eat again until 18 hours the next day. Count 18 hours and then have your next meal. And do that a few days and see how you feel. And once you kind of get comfortable with that, then do like a 24-hour fast where you don't eat maybe breakfast to breakfast or however. If you're going to skip a meal, dinner is usually the best one to skip as far as health's concerned. So this because of the digestion process. There's a lot of healing that goes on in your sleep, but if your body is busy digesting food, it can't do all those healing things that it's supposed to be doing while you sleep. So you want to you want to give at least 3 hours before you sleep. That should be your last meal. So so do that 24-hour fast, and then maybe try a 3-day fast or a 2-day fast, a 3-day fast, and then move up to a 5-day fast. And then, way down the road, I mean, my progress has been over like 2 years. So that's what I was doing last week, was a 5-day fast. So, and like I said, and you should test the whole time. Before you go into an extended fast, I highly suggest that you get into ketosis. 2 things. Get into ketosis before you start the fast. So make sure you're eating lots of fat, 0 carbs if possible, the minimal amount of carbs. Like you probably need to track it for a while, because you'd be surprised at where your carbs are coming from. Increase your fiber intake, decrease your carbs, increase your fat intake. Be careful with your proteins, because protein can trigger the gluconeogenesis and cause your glucose to spike. And get into ketosis. And the only way you're going to know that is if you're testing. So the number 2 thing is cut caffeine. no caffeine, because you don't want to be fasting and then have to deal with the whole caffeine withdrawals and stuff like that. So. Hey, I appreciate it, Budsville. Libertarians so dumb they don't get elected because most people are broke and poor. Poor people don't care about having more of their money back. They don't have none. Okay. I don't know what that means, but I don't think that's relevant. You know the free market system that the Libertarian Party and libertarianism espouses is and it's proven throughout history that the freer the market is, the less poverty there is. So if you really wanted income equality, if you wanted to lift people out of poverty, then you would reduce restrictions on the free market through regulation and through licensing laws. So if you got government completely out of the market, you would lift more people out of poverty than any other means. The governments can every time the government tries to control the market, whether it's through taxation, whether it's through licensing laws or regulations or minimum wage laws, all of these things actually hurt the poor more than they help the poor. So if you think that's the reason why we don't get elected, then that's your own ignorance. The reason we don't get elected, I think the number one reason is they won't let us on the debate stage, because I think they know that libertarians would make fools out of both the Democrat and the Republican. For one, I think that their scripts have no answer for what libertarians will bring to the table. So I think it's total fear since Ross Perot. Nobody probably even remembers Ross Perot, but he's the last third party, I think it was an independent, that got on the debate stage. And he's scared the debates, the national debates, presidential debates, actually were, they used to be ran by the League of Women Voters. And once Ross Perot got up there and basically punched, I forget who was running, I think it was Bill Clinton and Bush Sr., punched them both in the face, made them look stupid. Probably got the most votes of any third party because he was on the stage. And so the duopoly, the Republicans and Democrats, seeing that their monopoly of power in the government would end if they allowed this to continue, they took over the debates. And now it's a bipartisan committee that determines who gets on the national debate stage for the presidency. And because it's a private, this isn't a government agency that manages the debates. This is a bipartisan private organization that manages them. So they get to make their own requirements. This isn't anything that's legislated. It's not anything that's voted on. It's not anything that us citizens have a say in. So every year, it's just a constant lawsuit after lawsuit we're trying to get the courts to allow us to get on the stage. But because now they want to use liberty, right? They want to say, well, it's all right because this is a private debate. But it's nationally televised, and it's probably the single most watched political conversation that happens in the entire country in an election season. And so it's so super significant. So I think that's one of the main reasons why libertarians don't get elected. And at that national level, and I know that everybody's like, well, at local level, we do win a lot of elections at local and state level. But at that national level, that's the key, because that's what the most people see. And I think that would be the biggest advertisement we could possibly have, is to get on the national debate stage. It would put that libertarian philosophy in so many more people's minds. Other than that, I think it's just this party politics, the partisanship, where they now have us believing that we're fans of Republicans or Democrats. You're either on Team Blue or Team Red. And if we could get people to understand that these elected officials are actually our employees that we pay to do a job, and that campaigns are their job interviews. And if they don't live up to their campaign, then we should fire them by electing somebody else. We need to get out of our head that I'm a liberal or I'm a conservative or I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican. And I think the younger generation they don't identify with parties. They hardly identify with any party. If you ask anybody that's, probably 25 and below, they're like, I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. Unless they're really super politically active, like the League of, what do they call it, Young Republicans. They probably have the Young Democrats too. So that's that. So that was a good little libertarian spiel for 30 minutes. Appreciate that. Good stuff. Some of the news I'd like to get into. What was this one? Uh-oh. Oh, okay, so coronavirus news. Real quick. Well, not real quick. So I was curious this morning. I was trying to think of, some stuff I would like to talk about based off your comments and stuff. And so there's one country that did nothing, that didn't lock down the country, that didn't stop the economy, that didn't do anything, and that's Sweden, right? So people were saying, what does Sweden look like versus the U.S.? And this is I'm messing with the numbers a little bit. But I'm going to put these two charts up here. So the first one, let me see what the first one is. I forgot where I put them. So, okay, so the first one is Sweden's cases, right? This is the total coronavirus cases in Sweden, right here. Yeah, you can see the dates. February, I guess, is when they started testing. They got their test kits before we did. And you can see that they spiked and then they started leveling off. Let's see if I can do this. Nope, can't. Spiked and then they started leveling off. So that's Sweden. And now let's look. So this is a country that they basically went the libertarian route. They didn't close down their businesses. Of course, they emphasized that you should social distance, that you should wear your mask, but there was no laws that were placed in effect that would restrict your liberties. And here is the U.S. Where'd it go? And there's the U.S. So I couldn't find the exact same chart, but you can see actually the U.S.'s cases were a lot steeper than that's over here. So it went up like that way, steeper, and then of course it leveled off just like Sweden did. So, hey buddy. G Liberty here. So what my point is that you can see that the curves are the same. Actually, the curve looks worse in the U.S. than it does in Sweden. So the curves are basically the same. Now, I am twisting the numbers because I think percentage-wise, based off population, Sweden's been hit harder, I guess. I don't know. But I think Sweden's population is older. So there's so many different parameters that go into this. When you started testing, how many people you were testing, who you were testing. Are you only testing those that are sick, or are you testing those that are not sick and showing symptoms? You gonna listen in? So there's a lot of different parameters that go into this. Were there underlying health conditions? What's the health condition status of the country? Because I'm hearing that obesity, you're 3 times more likely to have complications from COVID if you're obese. So obesity is a key thing. Of course, we've already learned that diabetes is a big thing, and any other immune deficiencies. But also, I heard the actual one of the health people that are in Trump's the lady that's in Trump's coronavirus task force. I don't know exactly what she's one of the health, not Fauci, but the female, the lady. She's she was talking and she was saying that if even if you die of something else, if you have COVID-19, they're classifying that as a COVID-19 death, which is going to just explode. So, like, if you have a heart attack, and then just if you're asymptomatic from COVID-19, like you don't have a fever, you don't have no symptoms of COVID-19, and you have if you have cardiovascular disease and die of a heart attack, and they test you for COVID-19 and you're positive, that's going to count as a COVID-19 death. That's a fact, people. She said it. I mean, I just listened to it in the news conference, and I'm like, that's going to totally explode your numbers, right? So the numbers in the United States are totally overblown. And who knows what other statistics the other countries are having as well. I mean, how they're counting their numbers. I mean, this is just blown completely out of proportion. So I wanted to share that with you. I'm going to share another one that I shared. No, don't do that. Nope, don't do that. I want to share another one with you that I got from Chase Champs. He sent it to me. This is actually, and I shared it yesterday, so this is going to be a rerun for anybody who watched my stream yesterday. But this was this is the stats. That's going to cover up my head. Move it over here. So these are the coronavirus stats. All the way up till May 2nd, and you could see that we, even according to this, I mean, I'm 100% believe that we peaked in January. So, and that's based off the other thing that I was talking about. I got that one too. I could show that one where we peaked in January for pneumonia and flu deaths. And if you think we weren't testing for COVID, what's killing people? If it's COVID-19 and we're not testing for COVID, they're basically going to die of pneumonia or flu. That's what they're going to assume that it is, or that's what they're going to test for. That's what they're going to show. Pneumonia, flu. And our pneumonia and flu deaths peaked in January. It's been around since November, so that's probably our peak. But this year even shows that since we started testing, and you can see when we started testing was late February, early March, and we didn't even have that many test kits in March. I'm trying to move out of the way. We didn't have that many test kits in March, so this isn't even representative of actual cases or people dying of COVID because they weren't testing everybody. I mean, we didn't have an abundance of test kits. So this is just, I mean, probably we didn't really start getting a lot of test kits until right here, right? So now we're testing everybody. And, this is where we spiked right here, which is, I'll get good at this eventually. April 11th. So that was the highest point, I think, right? Yep, 13,000 deaths for that week of April 11th. And then it went down, down, down. So, and that was probably the peak of our testing, where we had the maximum amount of test kits out there. So, I mean, that's the only explanation I have for it. So I can't really see chat while I'm in there, so I'm going to go back to chat now and see what's going on. Okay, nobody's talking. So yeah, that's my little bit on COVID-19. Now I want to get into some world news today. So my Saturday morning streams are actually prime time, other side of the world, on the other end of the pond. So I like to talk about some stuff going on in Europe and Asia. So Italy has actually, starting on May 18th, is given a go-ahead to have Catholic Mass. So I was kind of surprised that the Vatican City actually even listened, because they're a completely separate country from Italy. So Vatican is Catholic country. That's their country. They know it's right in the middle of Italy, but they basically are separate, sovereign from Italy. But anyway, so the government of Italy is actually now, Italy was like one of the hardest hit countries out there, but this is May 18th is when they're going to start allowing Catholic Mass again, and this is like weeks earlier than they expected. So they're lifting their ban on religious services. I'm like, that bothers me. That bothers me that there's an actual ban on religious services, and it's here in the U.S. too. So we're having a Mother's Day service in my church. It's going to be another drive-up service. Although I think they are allowing churches to congregate again, but my church. But you're still supposed to maintain social distancing and separation and stuff. And my pastor was like, "There's no way that's happening with my church. Our church there's no way. I mean, we're too tight. We're too close. Everybody's hugging, and it's family, man. I mean, our church is 500 family, 500 family members. So it's you put us together, and then it's going to be hard for us to say, hey, it probably would hurt more people than it would benefit. We're digging it anyways because we have church like every morning at 6 a.m. Monday through Friday. So it's wonderful. We're studying the Beatitudes now. Great book. But anyway, so Italy's opening up church service again on May 18th. I thought that's pretty good. If you're from Italy, give me a shout out. Please. I am Italian. Technically. My grandfather migrated here from Italy, or from Sicily actually, in 1904. So he came in on Ellis Island. He was an immigrant, escaping Mussolini, I think. I don't know, but escaping some nasty socialist dictator regime in Italy in 1904. So I'm only a second generation American from my dad's side. As of Friday, Italy had the third most confirmed cases of the virus in the world with over 217,000 and the third most deaths with over 30,000. So but that country, once again, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, and there's a lot of underlying health conditions in that country as a population, and it's a much older population. It's like India. People are wondering why India's cases may be so low, is because they have a much younger population. So that says a lot about it. And speaking of India, so this is so of course they've had a shutdown and lockdown in India also, where they've shut down the economy for the most part, and they locked them down. So of course, but as a natural consequence of shutting down the economy, now you have a lot of homeless people. And so 14 people are killed when a train crushed them. These migrant workers, actually they're migrant workers, so they were, but they're out of work, so they're just finding a place to sleep. I don't know why they would sleep on train tracks. That's not very smart, but especially 14 of them. That actually sounds kind of like suicide. So, tens of thousands of people have been walking home from India's big cities after losing their jobs because of a lockdown to contain the spread of the coronavirus since late March. So, sleeping on the tracks on Friday, killing at least 14 of the group who are apparently on their way home to their villages, the railway ministry and media said. That's horrible, man. It was a freight train. This is in the western state of Maharashtra. Maharashtra. Under the lockdown, all public transport has been suspended, so migrant workers heading home often have to walk long distances to get there. The lockdown in India has been extended until May 17th. So, I mean, this is just another consequence of government making decisions that probably did not need to be made. In India, I don't know. I don't know if that's the case or not. So another piece of India news is India started bringing home hundreds of thousands of stranded amid the coronavirus. So I heard that, and I found a video of these 5 Indian students that were asking their government to bring them home. They were actually going to college here in Indiana, which kind of made it confusing. India and Indiana. So, but they were asking their government. I don't know if any of you have seen the video, but and I was saying, that I was telling Evolve, I was like, hey, we should share this, and he's like, probably not, right? But it was an interesting video. So I thought it was pretty cool because they all ended their thing with Namaste, and that's one of my favorite things. Namaste. Maybe I'll start ending my streams with Namaste. But I guess the government is actually responding and going to start bringing their citizens home that want to come home, since this whole coronavirus outbreak has stranded them in other countries. And then there's this massive gas leak that killed a bunch of people in India, unrelated to coronavirus, I think. I don't know. Maybe they went to minimum manding, social distancing, or physical distancing, whatever you want to call it. Maybe they went to that in order to prevent the spread. Flatten the curve, do that thing. Scared, out of fear, don't want to get infected with this flu thing. And and maybe there wasn't enough people to monitor. Who knows? I think a lot of interesting stuff's going to come out of this. And this was in New Delhi, gas leak. 12 people dead, 350 people hospitalized. Toxic gases seep from a South Korean-owned polymers plant in southern India. This was Thursday morning. So, and from what I was seeing, I guess they're charging the company with homicide, which I thought was really interesting. Because like I said, I kind of try to put a libertarian twist on stuff sometimes. And I was thinking, charging a company with homicide, that would be good. If there's there should be some kind of restitution to the victims and for those that died, the victims' families. So if the government's actually charging the company with homicide, and they're found guilty of negligent homicide, or whatever they want to call it, then they could demand restitution from the company and pay the victims and the victims' families for those that died. So I think that's actually restitution is a big thing for and see my stream yesterday for more on restitution in the criminal justice system. I think that's great. So that might actually make something good come out of that, although it looks horrible. The pictures and stuff you see are horrible, and big evacuation and stuff. So yeah, that's crazy. So South Korea was so applauded and everything over how they dealt with the coronavirus and stuff, and they were saying that they were like the example, and then so they started opening up their economy again, and so they got more cases, of course, because this is a contagious disease and people are going to get it. There's never been a question about whether we were going to get it or not. They're saying that, remember at the very beginning, they said everybody was going to get it, and the whole purpose of everything that we do is just to flatten the curve. So we've flattened the curve to the point where they're laying off and furloughing nurses and doctors because they don't have anything for them to do. Is your brother out?
Yes.
Oh, is he in there bugging mom?
No.
Oh, okay. So anyway, so Seoul is now shutting its bars and nightclubs down after this. They got a new cluster of coronavirus people. So, at least 6 killed at an Afghan protesting demanding more aid under the lockdown. So in Afghanistan, they were protesting and 6 people get killed. I haven't seen why they got killed. So, and then Belarus is another one who's been kind of ignoring the whole coronavirus thing. They just had a World War II parade. So it's crazy, man. It's crazy what's going on in this world right now over this virus. It's just completely ridiculous, if you ask me. And Brazil, I guess, is having a spike now. So the UN Secretary General is saying that there's a tsunami of hate and xenophobia, scapegoating and scaremongering, and appealed for an all-out effort to end hate speech globally. I don't know exactly what he means by hate speech. I don't watch the news. I don't. So I kind of scavenger around and try to find some sources and stuff to give you guys some good information that I'm getting. So fact-based, stuff like that. But I don't watch the news, and it's helped my mentality so much, not to be bombarded with that negativity all the time. That's why I can come to you and be open and honest and kind of laid back about all this stuff, is because I don't let this stuff actually, affect me emotionally. And I got Christ on my side, so, I don't fear this stuff anyways. I don't fear death. I don't fear anything out there. I put my trust in God, and I know I'm good. So, like I say, I always encourage you to develop your spiritual path. I mean, no matter what it is, just really work on. Most of the world religions revolve around, if it's a single God religion, I don't think that it could not be the same God, so, and develop that spiritual path. And most of them kind of preach the same thing, the whole love your neighbor thing, and, so I encourage that. Talking about like hate, like religious hate, like anti-Semitic conspiracy theories have spread. Semitic being Jewish, anti-Jewish conspiracy theories, anti-Muslim attacks have occurred. I don't know. I haven't looked that much into this, but yeah, I guess there's a lot of hate crimes have increased. It's crazy. So Kim Jong-un is praising China. I haven't read this post yet either. It's from the New York Post, which is not one of my favorite sources, but this is just kind of something funny. So I'll go with it since it's funny. But Kim Jong-un congratulates Xi Jinping for China's coronavirus success. I think that's funny if that's actually what he said. And he disappeared for 3 weeks. He gave a shout out, Chinese President Xi Jinping, on Friday, congratulating for his success in managing the coronavirus outbreak and wishing him good health. Okay, that doesn't sound horrible. We know that North Korea only exists because of China's support. So, being that they're both technically dictatorships, one's communist China, is North Korea is just a dictatorship, isn't it? But they're basically communist as well, socialist. The government controls everything in North Korea. They control the lights. If you see a satellite picture of Korea at night, you just see this black spot. There's no lights on in North Korea. South Korea, of course, lit up. But so he emerged for a May 1st ribbon cutting event at a fertilizer factory. China and North Korea are close neighbors, maintain close communications over the fighting of the virus. So in case you just thought that Kim Jong-un was a dictator, no, he's also a politician. He got to keep his friends close. He hasn't learned how to keep his enemies closer, though, because he does not. It's like every time we start developing a little bit of a relationship with North Korea, they'll do something that gets us all fired up again. So back to the U.S. real quick before I close this thing out. Let me see if we got anything in chat real quick. No, it doesn't seem like it. So bringing it back to the United States real quick, I was watching a thing because I used to be a Patriot missile systems in the Army. My last few years in the Army I worked in Patriot. I was a launcher guy. So launcher dogs, raw. And so I was reading that they're going to withdraw the Patriot systems and stuff from Saudi Arabia. I thought we withdrew them a long time ago, but I guess they went back over Iran. I think they redeployed them. So we're talking about getting our troops out of Saudi Arabia, and the president President Trump said that they might be withdrawing troops from other places as well because we're over there defending them and they're not respecting us. You know how he talks. He's just kind of really vague about stuff. He said he's not necessarily talking about Saudi, but he's saying that we've got a lot of pieces moving militarily. We have a lot of pieces moving. We're the strongest army in the world. We're the greatest, the bigliest army in the world. And he's going to, he's shifting some pieces around. We're working some stuff. I'm building some ships. Building them in the U.S. That's what he says. All in the interview. Building them in the U.S. They're going to be the best ships. They're the greatest ships. We got the best submarines. The best submarines. So, I guess he's a big Navy guy. So, I want to know when we get a new tank. I'm an Army guy. I want to know when we get a new tank. The Marines, they want to know when they get new body armor because they need it. But, so he's saying they're moving a lot of pieces around. So I'm hoping that means maybe we're going to start withdrawing some troops back to the U.S. and get out of these meaningless wars, because it's just completely ridiculous. That hits me close. I want my brothers and sisters home. We are the Department of Defense. Defense. What are we defending over there? We're not. It's not the Department of Defending the rest of the world's interest. It's the Department of Defending the U.S. The U.S. and not interests, but the U.S. Defending our freedom. Our sovereignty. It's for us. You don't put lives at risk for stupid interests. So, anyway, hopefully that's what that means. He was at a World War II veterans thing, not wearing a mask, and of course the media blows this all up out of proportion. But have you seen President Trump wear a mask yet? I haven't seen him put a mask on yet. Have you? I haven't seen him social distance in any of his news conferences. Has anybody seen him with a mask on? I haven't seen him with a mask on. So I haven't seen him social distancing. I haven't seen. I bet you he has guests at the White House. Me. I bet you his grandbabies come over, hanging out. I'm just saying. Know what I mean? We're supposed to be restricted here. Can't have family over. Like they just sent out a text message to everybody in El Paso about celebrate Mother's Day by keeping your mother stay safe and don't go visit her. Man, you crazy. Don't go visit your mama on Mother's Day. Well, my mama lives like 800 miles away, so I'm not visiting my mama, but my wife's definitely visiting her mama that lives 6 miles away with the grandbabies. Like they've been doing every weekend regardless. So, and nobody's gotten sick. So, yeah, man, I got this text. So I'm going to open up the phone lines real quick, see if anybody wants to call in and say hi. I also got an email. I'm going to put up my email address as well. So there's my email address right underneath my name. And the phone number. You can email me in a question if you want, if it's too big or too complicated to text. I kind of went through everything I wanted to go through. Unemployment rate in the U.S. is up to 14.7%. I'm curious about that one now. 20.5 million jobs. What source is this? Wall Street Journal? New York Times. The worst devastation since the Great Depression. So we've now reached unemployment rates equal to the Great Depression. It's crazy, man. Stuff needs to stop. That's the bottom line. Stuff needs to stop. Okay, that's good. Oops. Oh man, really? I missed the call. I don't know how I miss calls on this Google Voice. I don't know why I'm not getting them. But anyways, so there's my email address, marino4elpaso@gmail. So if you would like, you can shoot me an email or give me a call. I have the Google Voice open. So if you want to chat about anything or if you want to just email me a question, I'll stick around for about 5 or 10 more minutes. If no more questions or anything, I am going to close this thing out. Appreciate y'all's comments. I'm gonna briefly go over this unemployment thing because this is, as the unemployment rate goes up, so do health problems, high blood pressure and depression and suicides and family violence and all of these things, man. It's horrible. 14% is the highest it's been in 100 years. So you could just translate that into your head is now the depression rate, the suicide rate, the family violence rate is going to be the highest it's been in 100 years. So that's bad. And then you got alcohol sales are up 55% last time I checked. That's adding fuel to the fire. But they don't talk about that. And of course, the hardest hit are low-wage workers, including which are majority being women and racial and ethnic minorities. Of course, that the government is the enemy of the poor. You need to get that in your head. If you're poor, the government is not your friend. They only power is going to be to restrict you. They're going to restrict your ability to innovate, your ability to be an entrepreneur, your ability to create wealth. The government only restricts your ability to create wealth. So we got to get that through our head. That's why the free market helps the poor so much. Because whatever you can think of, you can create wealth with in a free market society. This is a really skimming over the top of the whole minimum wage topic. But the thing about minimum wage is that a company is in business to make money, right? To create wealth. They have to create wealth in order to maintain their employees, in order to continue creating products. So if they're going to hire you, you need to be able to create wealth equal to the amount they're going to pay you, at least. So what you bring to the table is important. So if your value to the company isn't equal to $7.50 an hour or whatever the minimum wage is, the company is not going to hire you because you're not going to bring $7.50 to the table. You're not going to bring that money into the company. You're not going to create that amount of wealth to the company. So hiring you would actually cost them money and hurt their ability to provide for the rest of their employees and provide for the production of whatever their product is. So they're not going to hire you. But if the job that they're hiring for, if you could bring $5 an hour to the table, if you could bring $5 worth of value to the company, then they could hire you for $5 an hour. But now the government is saying, no, they can't hire you for $5 an hour. So now you have to go get on welfare or unemployment because the company is not allowed to hire you for the amount of value that you could bring to the company. So, but if there was no minimum wage law, they could hire you for $5 an hour. This is like if you had no experience, right? So they hire you for $5 an hour, you learn on the job, and as your value grows, the company would pay you more money. And if they don't pay you more money, then a competing company would pay you more money based on your value. Now your value has risen and they could pay you that money. Another company would pay you that money. So now this company that has trained you and taught you and increased your value has now lost that value to another company. So now maybe they pay you $7.50, maybe they pay you $10 an hour because your value has went up that much. So when I say that minimum wage laws hurt the poor, that's exactly the reason. And in a competitive free market society, the market itself would handle it. That whole transaction I just explained right there is how the free market ecosystem actually controls corruption, deceit, and stuff without government involvement. Anytime the government gets involved, things get worse. So, and it's you can look at the statistics yourself. As they've increased the minimum wage, the unemployment rate crashes, especially among minorities. So, I mean, minimum wage, and it's hard to get people to understand this, but minimum wage, again, is the enemy. It's one of the minimum wage laws and the drug laws are the most racist laws on the books. You can quote me on that. The most racist laws on the books. The drugs, because the police, the reason why minorities are arrested at a higher rate than non-minorities or whites is because the police patrol the minority neighborhoods more because they're usually the downtowns or the lower income areas. And the reason for that is because, not me necessarily, because I've only been here since 1904, my family. So, but the reason why that is, the reason why minorities are usually poorer than, and that's not always true, but percentage-wise, statistically, is because whites have had the ability to create wealth, the freedom to create wealth for 250 years, 225 years, since actually all the way over since England, right? So hundreds and hundreds of years they've been creating wealth for their families and been passing it on generation to generation and stuff, each generation getting a little better for themselves, hopefully, But we've really only released the bonds for minorities when they ended slavery. That kind of released it, but there were still massive restrictions on minorities. So technically they haven't exactly had the same freedoms as us, except maybe in the past 100 years, maybe even less than that. So that's the reason why there's so many minorities still stuck in poverty, is because they've maybe only had one generation when a lot of whites and non-minorities have had 3-4 generations going along. So that's the reason for that. I ain't got no emails, no calls yet. So and it would be great if they would. You want to see this unemployment rate crash? Get rid of the minimum wage laws. Open up the economy, get rid of the minimum wage laws, and watch this thing go from 14% to 2%. Like that. Get people back to work. People want to earn their own money. They don't want to sit on welfare. The majority of people do not want to sit on welfare. They want to work. So, and the lower, And some people, like I said, you can prove your own value to an industry and make more money. The only exception to that rule would be if you weren't physically qualified. You know what I mean? Like if you were trying to be a construction worker and you're in a wheelchair, you're probably not going to be able to increase your value unlimited unless you were the contractor that's making the decisions, drawing the plans and stuff. But if you're a laborer, if you're trying to start out as a laborer, it's going to be hard for you to work your way up. So it'd be only kind of exceptions like that. But I know there's a lot of disabled people that would not mind just getting out of the house and working for $3 an hour or $4 an hour, and hopefully, proving their worth and work their way up the ladder and make some more money. But most of them would just rather just work to prove their worth. You know what I mean? To have some value in society. A lot of people would just do that. I honestly believe that most people would prefer to be a value to society instead of a burden to society. So yeah, this is not good. So oh man, I need to talk about that real quick. So there's some sheriffs that are refusing to enforce the stay-at-home orders. I didn't even look that up this morning either. Let's talk about that real quick. So these are all over the place too. I'm just going to go over some of these from the NPR. Some sheriffs refuse to enforce Washington State's gun ban. I guess there was a gun ban? This is from NPR, so actually fairly decent short. Enforce gun laws. This is last fall. Oh, firearms restrictions. So a lot of sheriffs are refusing to enforce that. This is old, but the sheriffs protesting stay-at-home orders by refusing. This is Washington Post, one of the ones I don't like the most. But so they're probably. I'll try to see when I read these things. I'll try to get their bias out of it. You know what I mean? So when I talk about it, I'm just going to give you kind of what I think is probably the factual information, and I'll get the. Because when you read stuff, you can see when they're instituting these emotional little words in there to try to twist your thoughts and make you think their way. And I try to remove those when I talk to you about it. Hey, what's up, bud? I'm gonna say hi.
Hi, everybody.
Just dropped my water bottle on my foot.
Sorry.
Ouch. So, yep. Snohomish County, Washington, sheriff is refusing to enforce government stay-at-home orders. He claims that the order intrudes on our right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And he is exactly right, and that's in the preamble to the Constitution of the United States he's quoting from. There's other elected sheriffs. So that's the thing about elected sheriffs, you know what I mean? They have to run for office too. So they're representing a constituency that gives them their jobs. So unlike police chiefs and commissioners that are hired by the mayors that are, posting these laws. So I mean, that's why the sheriff actually has authority over the police, is because the sheriff is an elected position itself. See, sheriffs choose whether and how they cooperate with federal immigration authorities or federal drug laws and stuff like that. So sheriffs being an elected position puts them at a higher authority, and they can make these decisions on their own because they're elected, just like they're elected officials like mayors and city councils and stuff like that. So in North Carolina, they're actually refusing to allow ICE agents into the county jails. So the Constitution appoints sheriffs as the ultimate law enforcement authority, even above the federal government. Huh, that's interesting. I got to look into that. Constitutionalist sheriffs. Very interesting. They've been attacking, constitutionalist sheriffs have been attacking stay-at-home orders, which elevate the rights of the community over the rights of the individual. See, that's not what it's doing. Community does not have rights. Rights are individually based. There's no life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for communities. There's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for individuals within a community. You can't expand these concepts to the entire nation, so you can't expand them beyond the individual. I don't understand how that works. So, but yeah, it's interesting. These sheriffs standing up. There's protests all over the place. There's all kinds of stuff going on, man. The same stuff I've been talking about for months now. Well, since this whole thing started, I showed the video the other day of me talking when this thing first kicked off, and yeah, I've basically been preaching the same thing for the whole month and a half or whatever this thing's been going on, and now there's like everybody getting on board. So I mean, it's terrific, and I hope it is. I hope it turns out to be this terrific wake up call, and that people realize that the only way you're going to get a change in this country or even in this world is to start electing people that have more libertarian philosophy, the more libertarian political views. And if you're in another country that has democratic elections and stuff, look at the candidates and see if there's anybody that's running for office that has those libertarian principles. And if there isn't, run yourself. It's not that hard. I mean, it wasn't that hard for me to run on a libertarian platform, and I think it's a lot of places it's even easier to run as an independent. So, yeah. So think about it. Think about it. I'm gonna wrap this thing up. It's been a while. How long has this thing been going on? An hour and 15 minutes or so. Appreciate y'all's time. Covered a lot of stuff. I don't think I have any emails or anything. But that is my email. You can email me anytime. I will email you back with an answer. Or I might even cover it on a future stream. I need to start doing the 10-minute videos. I'm just not as quick at editing as Evolve is. That dude puts out like 4 videos a day. You know what I mean? So I can't edit. The Power Director on the phone, I mean, it's pretty easy to use. They did an update that kind of made it suck, but it's really easy to use on the phone. But I got to get back into it. I got to get back into the editing thing. I've been busy like crazy this past week, even while fasting and everything has been busy. Homeschooling, my wife's been working nights, and it's been crazy. Personally, it's been crazy. So, but yeah, I got to get back into the editing thing because it's something that you can lose like that. You know what I mean? There's a lot to it. I use Sony Vegas on the computer, and I use Power Director on the phone. But I'm gonna get off of here. I'm probably gonna do some game streaming on Twitch and YouTube if anybody wants to jump in and join me. Look at last Saturday's description of my last Saturday video, and I got my Blizzard and Activision tag on there and play some Call of Duty. Hopefully my oldest son, I got a 24-year-old too, Josh. Hopefully he jumps on and joins me. Be safe out there, everybody. Appreciate y'all checking me out. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Shoot me an email. Leave a comment. Let me know if I said something that doesn't make any sense. Let me know if I said something that does. I appreciate all the love. I appreciate all the support. And you guys have a good weekend. Thank you so much, and God bless you all.